Hi, I'm Dr. Sophie, and in this video, we're going to be talking about healthy food alternatives, things you can swap out of your kitchen, and how to eat seasonally to best support yourself through the winter months. Hi, I'm Dr. Sophie Mills here at Ott Family Chiropractic in St. Francis, Minnesota. Today, we're going to be talking about healthy alternatives to foods that you may be already eating. So when we're talking about alternatives, we want foods that are nourishing, that provide value to our bodies, so things that will support them, and ones that will make us feel and function the best. There's a huge list that we could go through for this, but here's just a couple of my favorites and some really basic ones that you can start with. So number one, we want to talk about when making pancakes or breads, things like that, using bananas instead of different flours. This is a great way to remove some of the carb load. Even though bananas have some sugar, it's not processed. So that's a great place to start. With oils, we want to look at coconut oil, avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, more than oils such as vegetable oil or canola oil. We want to stay away from those because those are highly processed as well. For butter, instead of just using margarine or whatever comes on the shelf at the grocery store, ghee is a great alternative that's high in fat, and I personally think it tastes really good. Noodles, we can look at zucchini noodles. Spaghetti squash is a great alternative. You could even use rice noodles or lentil, chickpea. There's a ton of options. Trying to stay closer to the vegetable noodles more than even the rice or the wheat or the white noodles would be the best for your body. As far as flours go, same thing. We want to stay in a low glycemic index, so that means how well our bodies will be able to digest and absorb these foods. So flours like wheat flour, white flour, even brown rice flour are going to be higher in glycemic index, whereas coconut flour, almond flour will be lower. I was just at Walmart the other day and there was a ton of options even beyond almond and coconut, such as cassava and things like that. So go check out and see what they have. Maybe try something new and you'll be surprised. The next thing we're going to talk about is milk. So I know dairy is kind of a big controversy, but avoiding that when possible, right? Because it's inflammatory. So we also want to avoid the soy milks because that would also be processed. We want to stay away from soy as much as possible. That was really popular when moving away from dairy products at the beginning, but now we have a lot more better alternatives such as cashew milk, coconut milk, almond milk, etc. Looking at coconut aminos rather than soy sauce, you can find that at your local Walmart. I always use Walmart. I feel like that's the most basic example, but really any grocery store. And then the last example would be finding a really high quality bone broth, or even making your own is a really great option. There's a ton of recipes out there and ways to do it. But making your own bone broth rather than using canned soup or buying, Campbell's chicken noodle soup, that is pretty low in nutrient value and pretty processed. So those are a few options to check out. And yeah, just see how you feel, play around with it. There's a ton of options out on the internet. So the next we're going to talk about vitamin D. So in Minnesota, we are already at a deficiency of vitamin D, right? Our summers are here, but they're not very long, and the sun doesn't really get that intense during the summer. I actually heard a stat recently that there's only 6 weeks out of the summer that our bodies are even able to make vitamin D in Minnesota, just because of the angle of the sun. So although we feel the sun on our face, it doesn't necessarily mean that our body is making vitamin D from it. So that being said, we typically all need to supplement vitamin D, especially during the winter. But some food sources that you can implement to help support the vitamin D levels would be things like cod liver oil, wild-caught salmon, mackerel, tuna, sardines. I know those probably don't sound the best if you don't like seafood, but eggs and mushroom are also really great sources of vitamin D. The last thing I want to talk about is seasonal eating and seasonal foods. So this is from Chinese medicine. It's the concept that during different seasons, our bodies need different things, right? And then there's also the concept of eating how our ancestors would eat. So, for example, in the winter, watermelon wouldn't be one of the main food groups because they wouldn't have had access to that in the winter, right? It grows in the summer. So not eating foods that aren't natural to that season that you're in, or not making them the main food source. So some of the best options to eat during the winter would be things like slow-cooked soups, broth, stews, black beans or kidney beans, squash, potatoes, root vegetables are really good, carrots, celery, cabbage, mushrooms. You can do apples and pears, those are a little later in the season, lamb, chicken, and then just walnuts and other roasted nuts would be really great options to support your body's best during the cold winter months. If you have any other questions, please feel free to check out the blog, which will have the full list on it, or contact the office with any questions you may have. Thanks.